Good evening. I hereby call to order the November 22nd, 2022 meeting of the Gaithersburg Historic District Commission. For our roll call, please answer present when I call your name. Planner 2, Chris Berger.
Present.
Community Planning Manager, Greg Mann.
Present.
Deputy City Attorney, Frank Johnson.
Present.
Commissioner and Vice Chairman, John Roddy.
Present.
Commissioner Mary Jo LaFrance.
Present.
And myself, Commissioner and Chairman Di Matola, says present. We have a quorum, which is really, really good. We made it with 3. So next is our preliminary statement, which is as follows. This commission is empowered to meet and act under Article 12 of the City Code of Gaithersburg. The technical qualifications of the staff of this commission and the members of this commission are on file with the City of Gaithersburg and are available on request to any applicant and are hereby made a part of the legal record of each and every application heard today. Each application heard today is considered on its own merits and is not to be considered as establishing a precedent for any other application. Okay, does any commissioner have any conflicts of interest for any application being heard today? If so, please let me know.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a statement. These subject properties described in paragraph 3A of our agenda this evening are about 3 or 4 blocks from my house, and I have passed them virtually every day for the last 48 years. I do not think it would affect my judgment one way or the other.
Well, thank you very much for revealing that. And for yourself, any?
If we're going to divulge these kinds of things, I would say it was been a familiar sight for me since I've lived here for the last 37 years.
Okay, I'll come up 40, which means 37.
Very close.
So he wins.
That's
He
the weight of
does.
authority.
Thank you very much. All right, so there is one set of minutes needing approval, which is from our October 26, 2022 meeting. Does any commissioner have any corrections or additions to the minutes they'd like to see made? No? Okay, based on that, I'll make a motion to adopt the minutes as written. May I have a second?
I'll
Second.
it. Go ahead.
Okay, so then all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
I have to abstain. I wasn't
Abstain.
here.
Okay, so it passes 2-0 to 1 abstention. Very good. Minutes are adopted. Okay, so first up on our agenda, we have.
And not
I'm
to
so
interrupt,
sorry.
but just by way of general background, so you're aware, just because you're not present at a meeting, you do not have to recuse. We actually ended up looking that up through not only what the Roberts rules are, but even checking the municipal rules nationwide, and there's really no place that says that. And part of the concern would be if you have a shift of, let's say, commission members, or let's say there's an election, and at the city council level, the only thing you would be voting on is that you trust that the information is accurate and was prepared accurately. You can still always recuse, so that's not a problem, but I just wanted to say you don't have to necessarily. It's up to you, and certainly if you had, for instance, 2 people abstaining tonight, we can at least get the minutes approved, which is why that rule's in place.
Good point.
No
That's a
issue,
very
George.
good point.
Based on
Very
that
good point.
clarification, I would ask permission to change my,
Granted.
and I would be in favor.
Okay, so this
I would
passes.
also like to add that typically for myself, if you want to finish first, you may.
No, that's fine.
I will watch the recording
Mhm.
before the next meeting, and I will say so. And then I don't recuse myself because I've seen that it's
You
true,
can do
and
that
I've
too.
read the minutes as part of what I do before coming. So.
Very good. All right. So it passes 3-0.
That's true.
Okay, very good. All right, next then is, on our agenda is SDP dash 9355 dash 2022, which is the demolition of buildings 50 years or older at 1 Central Avenue and 539 South Frederick Avenue in the RA, which is the low-density residential zone. May we have an introduction from staff, please?
Yes, the applicant, One Central LLC, has submitted schematic development plan application SDP 9355 2022. The application proposes the demolition of 1 Central and 539 South Frederick and construction of 72 2/2 units within the 7.47 acre area comprised of 6 different parcels, which are marked in red on the map on the screen you see. Earlier this month, Mayor and Council and Planning Commission held a joint public hearing on SDP 9355 2022. One Central LLC also submitted height, parking, road code, and environmental waiver environmental waiver requests. An application has been submitted requesting to rezone from the RA low density residential to CD corridor development zone. The Planning Commission's record is open until December 16th with anticipated recommendation on January 4th, and the Mayor and Council's record is open until January 13th with anticipated policy discussion on February 6th. The application comes before the HDC tonight in accordance with Section 24-231 of the City Code, which states that prior to issuance of each demolition permit for structures or buildings 50 years or older, approval of a site plan requiring demolition of an existing structure or building 50 years or older, which is the case here, the HDC shall review for potential historic or architectural significance under the criteria specified under Section 24-226 of the Code. The HDC has two options tonight: determine that the properties do not meet the criteria for historic designation, or if the HDC determines that any site has the reasonable probability of being designated, the HDC shall petition the Mayor and Council with a resolution to initiate the historic designation process. So first we'll go through 539 South Frederick Avenue, and this is known as the Offutt-Aschenbach House. In 1902, Washington, D.C. builder John S. Larcom bought 10.187 acres in the surrounding area, including the subject properties that now comprise this property, 539 South Frederick. Larcom's son, John S. Larcom Jr., had a home on Central Avenue, and the rest of the land was used for farming. Tax records indicate that this house on the screen now was constructed in 1942, the same year the Larcoms moved to a house on Summit Avenue. Mary E. Famous purchased the property in 1944, and she sold it 2 years later to Walter C. and Agnes Offutt, who operated a bail bonds business in Rockville. W. Lawson King, a dairy and cattle farmer and car dealership owner, who was known as Mr. Gaithersburg, he purchased the property in 1956, and 3 years later gave it to his youngest daughter, Fanny Lois Aschenbach. She and her husband, Conrad Aschenbach, had 4 children and managed the family auto dealerships, including King Pontiac, and they lived in this home until 1997. 9 years later, Fanny Lois Aschenbach transferred the property to its current owner, which is WLEM LLC, and the 2.5-story residence measures 3,906 square feet. It's located on over 2 parcels that total 3.7 acres, and it was built, as I mentioned, in 1942. It's a 5-bay wide colonial revival style brick building, and it's located on this precipice. Has an irregularly shaped footprint. The structural brick walls are laid in a running bond pattern with header bonds under the windows. There's vinyl trim in the gable ends on the rear elevation. There's gable and hip roofs that are covered with asphalt shingles. The front facade has this 2-story covered porch. It's a single bay wide, supported by a pair of those Tuscan wood columns. There's a light fixture that's suspended from the roof of the porch. There's a wood paneled front door that has wood windows or wood door surrounds. It's paired with the storm door on the outside, and there's these brick steps to the porch floor, and it has these metal handrails. Let's see, and then there is a large 2-story addition, which you see in the back here. This was built circa 1950. The home includes a basement. Going to the rear elevation, there's a 1-story entryway covered with a hip roof. That's what you see over here, supported by those square columns. Here's a full photo of the rear elevation. There's a second entryway here that includes the sliding doors. The rear yard includes a 2-story rectangular shaped garage with 2nd floor apartment that was also built in about 1950. And here's a different view of that. 3 bays wide and has a gable roof covered with asphalt shingles. The garage doors have the square wood panels with glass lights, and the window types include 6/6 wood sash and one light fixed windows. The access door over here is wood. It has 9 lights with a cross brace pattern at the bottom. This building is beyond the garage building. It's a 2-story concrete block building that has a gambrel roof, and it obviously resembles a small barn. Its date of construction is unknown, but it is evident on the earliest available aerial from 1951. Here's a different view of it. It has these appendages, the shed roof appendages to either side. Here's a view from the side of the house, the right side elevation. So it's there's the muddy branch, it bisects the property, hence the slope. And there's a number of mature trees are located along these slopes closer to the stream. And most of these trees actually will be retained in the redevelopment, proposed redevelopment. There's a lot of mature trees on the property's north boundary along Duvall Funeral Home. So it's staff's opinion that this property lacks the reasonable probability of historic designation for its historic and cultural significance. Its period of construction during World War II is not a noteworthy period in the city's development history. No known historic events took place here. Members of the King family, the Aschenbachs, they were known figures in the area because of their role in the family auto dealership business, but while they were important people, their achievements do not necessarily rise to the level of influencing society. And it should be noted that they sought annexation into the city in 1997 in anticipation of redevelopment of the properties, and that's when they moved out the same year. So the building at 539 South Frederick also lacks the architectural and design significance. Besides the column front porch, the house is poorly proportioned and lacks many of the distinctive architectural elements commonly found on colonial revival style buildings. We don't know the architect and the builder, but the design and construction techniques do not indicate the works of masters. The book Gaithersburg, History of a City refers to the building as an unofficial landmark when entering Gaithersburg from the south. But while the building may be visible because of its raised elevation, staff believes that it lacks the reasonable probability to designate the building based on the fact that it's a familiar visual feature. So further, staff is not of the opinion that 539 South Frederick and 1 Central combined can form a historic district because of the building's lack of historic and cultural significance and architectural and design significance. And as for the outbuildings, the garage and apartment building at 539 South Frederick is utilitarian and devoid of architectural and design distinction as well. The barn-like shed is a delightful structure, but it lacks the reasonable probability of historic designation. Staff hopes it will be offered to someone who is willing to deconstruct or move it. So moving on to its neighbor, and this is 1 Central Avenue. It's known as the Jacobs House. And in 1947, W. Lawson King also purchased this property from Walter C. and Agnes Offutt as a wedding gift for his other daughter, Elizabeth Jean King. Elizabeth married James Riley Jacobs in September 1947, and Elizabeth collaborated on the design of the house with area builder Harold Ward. James Jacobs was part of an established Gaithersburg family who operated a farm store. He fought in World War II and had a doctorate in education, worked for the Montgomery County school system from 1948 until his retirement in 1975, and he was an associate superintendent when he retired. James was involved with a number of organizations, including the Gaithersburg Rotary Club, the Gaithersburg Lions Club, the Montgomery County chapter of the American Red Cross, the Montgomery General Hospital, and he was named the City of Gaithersburg's Distinguished Citizen of the Year in 2005, and he died 10 years later in 2015. Elizabeth Jacobs was involved with the Gaithersburg Washington Grove Garden Club, the Washington Grove PTA, the City of Gaithersburg's Historical Committee, and was a member of the Daughters of the American Revolution, and she died in 2017. The house has been vacant since then. As for the building description, the 2-story building measures 2,256 square feet and is located on a 1.56 acre property. It's a 3-bay wide colonial revival style building. It has a irregular footprint. The front entryway includes a wood paneled door with side lights. and pilasters at both sides. It's located on a hillside as well. It has a partially subterranean single vehicle garage that was added as part of a later addition in 1960. The exterior cladding is painted brick walls and wood siding on the second floor overhang. The gable and hip roofs are covered with asphalt shingles. And here's the rear elevation. The home has 2 chimneys along the exterior walls, one on the left side elevation, another on the rear. There's this open patio, which you can see through the trees here, which covers the driveway and the entrance to the garage. This is another view of the rear elevation, and these are the side elevation, which has these half-circle vents, the eyebrow vents. And the property also includes a shed, a bridge, and a covered patio. They were all built within the past 50 years. A stem of the Muddy Branch is located along the east of the property boundary. Again, there's mature shade trees and bushes that are found throughout. So as with its neighbor, it's staff's opinion that One Central lacks the merit to designate as historic for its historic and cultural significance. It was not built during one of the city's noteworthy development periods, and no known historic events took place there. The owners, James and Elizabeth Jacobs, made contributions to society, but staff is of the opinion it's unlikely the property will be designated for that reason, especially since the Jacobs themselves sought annexation into the city in 1997 to prepare for redevelopment of their properties. The building at One Central also lacks architectural and design significance. According to the book Gaithersburg History of a City, the builder of the house was Harold Ward, who was a noted Gaithersburg builder. The house was designed to resemble another house Elizabeth Jacobs admired. There is no evidence that Ward was a master builder based on his work alone at One Central Avenue. The house is a simple example of the colonial revival style. The steel casement windows are its most noteworthy building components and should be salvaged should the building be demolished. Unlike its neighbor at 539 South Frederick, the building is not immediately visible to passersby, so it's not much of a visual presence. So that's the conclusion of my presentation. Joining us tonight, we have John Jacobs, who is the grandson of James and Elizabeth Jacobs, and a representative of the applicant, One Central LLC.
Welcome. Please state your name for the record, and we'd like to swear you in.
Sure. John Jacobs.
Do you swear that the statement and information you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
It is, and I
Okay.
do.
Thank you.
Very
Know
good.
which
Thank
one
you
you're
very
That'll
much.
work.
Please add anything you'd like to have us know about your project.
Sure. So I do represent One Central LLC, but I'm also the grandson of James Riley Jacobs and Elizabeth Jacobs, who own the property at One Central. The property is still family owned by my great aunt and great uncle, WLEM LLC, and a trust that is in my grandmother's name for One Central, and then my aunt and uncle who own the remainder of the property that's not subject to historic designation. And although I have a lot of memories on site, as an extension and representative of the family, it's our collective opinion as well that the site should not be designated historic. In addition to what Mr. Berger outlined today, we believe its proximity to 355. I think we've mentioned the annexation agreement. It's also worth noting that my grandmother was part of this historic commission. It's unclear if she was still on the commission at the time of the annexation agreement, but it was certainly prior. So I would only assume that her recommendation, her willingness to annex the property and state for future redevelopment was with that historical context in mind. And although we don't believe and have the opinion that the property should be designated historic, we are looking at ways to commemorate my family and the memories that the figures who lived on property have. And that could be through signs, plaques that we post on site. I'm not sure if you were or saw the plans that we are putting forth for approval, but we will be preserving a significant portion of the site where we'll have walking trails, so we're looking at placement of those plaques and signage there. And then also looking at potentially naming the streets public street, and although not required, I'll have to look into this and get verification, but maybe the alleys as well, the private alleys. So I don't think I have anything else to add, but I appreciate the time tonight, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
All right. Chris, do we have anybody who's interested online to speak?
Perhaps we should have tech team play the video first.
If you've connected to the meeting tonight via Zoom and you're on a desktop or a laptop and you wish to make a public comment, we can't currently see or hear you. What you need to do, please, is wiggle your mouse around and look towards the bottom center of your screen. You should see a raise hand button. Go ahead and click on that now for us, please. Alternatively, if you've connected in via telephone, you can press *9.
And I see no one with their hand raised at the moment.
Okay, very good then. All right. So then let's hear from the commissioners. Commissioner Roddy, you're up first.
Thank you. Mr. Jacobs, if I could ask you a question, please.
Sure.
The depiction shows a structure in the far eastern corner of the property. Do I understand that is not part of this application?
It is part of the application, but I believe it is not 50 years old. Is that?
That's correct, yes.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Is that it?
That's it.
Very good. Okay. Commissioner LaFrance?
Thank you. That was on my mind as well. I really have more concerns than statements, not so much questions, I
Sure,
guess.
whatever you like.
Well, please come up. I
You're
guess I
gonna
will
stay up.
ask you this one question. I'm very interested when it comes to both of the properties. Chris already mentioned that you're hoping to get someone that will acquire the Red Barn. That's great. But any other salvage materials like and 1 Central Avenue doesn't seem to have a whole lot of architectural value, but that front door, it does. And all the side lights and everything, and the ribbed glass. So I was hoping you would make your best efforts to do your best to salvage anything interesting like that. And even though the interior is not part of our purview, any doors or anything that are solid wood, those kinds of things, we would really appreciate that you make sure you salvage.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I can work with the family. I know they have a particular interest in that as well.
Good. And then Chris also mentioned that you are, your family seems to be willing to maintain as many of the mature trees and plantings as possible, so I applaud that. That's something that was definitely a concern for me. And also, I guess the other thing I wanted to ask you is when it comes to the Muddy Branch tributary that surrounds both properties. And even though, again, that may not be under our purview, that's of concern to myself.
Sure. And based on our public hearing that we had a couple weeks ago, we outlined the flooding analysis and all the analysis that we're going through to maintain that we're in compliance and doing everything we can.
So it will remain on the property?
The
access to water moving?
Sure,
and all
the
that?
stream will
Yeah.
remain. There's a 100-year floodplain on site. We're actually going to be replanting that floodplain to prevent uncontrolled stormwater runoff. We're actually going to be improving the environmental context of the site.
Yes, because it is very natural right
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
Thank you. That's all
Sure.
I have.
Okay, thank you. You can sit. I don't have any questions for you directly. Chris, I don't remember the year this was built. I know I read it, but I don't remember.
Which one?
Which structure?
Oh, so sorry. It's the Jacobs house.
That one
Central.
was approximately 1947-48. There's a
Okay.
plaque on the back that says established. The family moved in
Oh, yeah,
1948,
yeah.
so it very well could have, been a year before. But yeah, approximately 1948.
Okay. I think this is a beautiful house. And it looks extremely authentic as a colonial revival. That is, it looked colonial to me, like it was from the 1800s or even the 1700s. It's really a very good design. Can you hit another picture to the right and then to the rear? The architecture looks really good to me. And then the rear, I think that's really very well done architecture. I'll say it'll be sad to see it gone. I don't believe that the mayor and council will approve it as historically designated, and therefore, because of that, I won't vote for it to be processed to be before them for their vote. I just don't think they would approve it at all. I do think it'll be sad to see it go, though. It looks beautiful. And what is the development going to be? Is it going to be commercial or residential?
Residential.
Oh, it is. Okay.
70, I believe it's 72, 2 over 2 houses, or
Oh, they're going to be
condos, yeah.
Oh, condos. Oh,
Mhm.
okay. How many units, John?
72
Did you say
separate
72?
buildings, so.
And how
more
many
than
buildings?
Approximately 150 units.
Okay.
Uh,
You can
Yeah.
be happy if you do
It's
speak, please.
36 buildings, 72 total units. There's 2
Gotcha.
units in each
There's
building.
36 buildings?
Mhm.
Oh, goodness. All right. And they're
3
two-story?
development nodes on the site, so I don't have a site plan up, but you can,
And there'll be 2-story condos?
it's a 4-story structure
Oh,
with
4-story,
2-story units, two
Oh,
two
two-
and
two
2,
over
so
two. Oh, I
it's
see.
stacked on top, yeah.
Okay, good.
But they look like townhouse homes.
Oh, okay, good, thank you, all right. Also, because this is on Frederick, I know there's a commercial pressure for that, and to me, Frederick is, it is important to build that up as a commercial area and increase its density, so for that, I have no problem seeing that this house will eventually be gone. It is a shame, it is a beautiful structure, though. But for 539 South Frederick, if we could look at a picture on that. Do you know if those 2 columns, the front porch?
They're wooden.
Okay, thank you.
You're
Do you
welcome.
know if they were original to the?
I would guess, yeah.
Not
I would
added?
guess they're original.
The
Yeah.
proportions are horrible. And the rest of the building, I don't even think meets that level. I do love, by the way, go to the rear, I do love the, that part. That it looks so English, so London, that when people do their own vernacular, sometimes it's just so beautiful. And other than the column, which looks quite unappealing, the massing on the back looks really good. However, I have no concerns whatsoever of seeing this building being raised. I don't think it has anything to offer Gaithersburg for its architecture.
May I also add a couple of things?
Sure, please
If
do.
Or am I going to wait until we do the talk between ourselves? I can wait.
That just happened. We're on Commissioners Open Forum, so have at it.
Very good, very good. Well, first, Dean, I wanted to ask you if you had an opportunity to go over to 1 Central Avenue at all.
No.
I did take some time to do that and walk the property and take some photographs. It really is a beautiful
is.
paradise over there.
Yeah,
It's lovely. And as far as 539, I actually had been in that house
Oh.
20, 25 years ago, maybe longer. And there was a yard sale inside on the table in the dining room.
Oh.
But because the bedrooms were personal, I couldn't tour the house. But I did see the big 4-season room, the living room, the dining room, the kitchen, and that was a lot of fun. So I can say that I have actually been in the house, so that
Okay.
was neat. And the ceilings were really high. And the fireplace faces both the 4-season room and the living room. It's dual-sided.
Wow.
So it's interesting. So back to, even though the interior isn't under our purview, if there are salvageable things, that would be great. And also the property is beautiful. There, the driveway literally circles around the back of the properties and comes out on Funk Central,
Wow.
which also crosses over
Yeah.
the tributary.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to draw that picture. And that's all I have to say now.
Okay, good. I mean, since it's Commissioners Open Forum, I'll throw
Yeah.
in, if this was from 1847, I would have a whole different
Yeah.
opinion about it.
Yeah.
I would be fighting for it, but 1947 is nothing to worry about.
I'd have to echo pretty much what the chairman and Commissioner LaFrance have said. Tonight, I'm not the hopeless romantic, but more of a realist. I don't see this, the one at, on South Frederick, 539, as being really a colonial revival. It, to me, is an amalgam of a half dozen
Yeah.
different architectural styles.
Yeah.
If anything, it's a classic hodgepodge.
You're
And
talking about the brick building on
Yeah,
539?
yes,
Oh, okay,
yes.
yeah.
the other one, I have to agree, it looks like it is idyllic.
Yeah.
Its location
Yeah.
and whatever, but I have to agree, being a realist, that located where it is on the size of the site, it's gonna fall. So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
uh,
It's a shame it's not in a historic district already.
Well, if it was
Such a
tucked in
treasure.
further down Central Avenue, that would be another
that's,
thing to consider, exactly.
that's a different ballgame.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly right. Anything near Frederick Avenue, to me, has tremendous pressure for development on it. So I think it's important that Frederick grows, and Frederick Avenue is the main corridor for that, so.
Exactly.
Okay, any further thoughts from anybody? And no one else, Chris, on waiting? Okay, very good. All right, so I am open to a motion to approve or deny this historic area work.
Excuse me,
This
Dean, I
demolition.
did want to say one more thing, that I wholeheartedly support the walking paths, the signage, the remembrance of the family. I don't think it's dismissible. I think your family really has been a part of Gaithersburg, Rockville, and surrounding areas, and should be remembered.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, very good. All right, so I'm looking for a motion to approve the demolition. I believe that's the correct terminology.
Ladies first?
Oh, but you know it breaks my heart, right?
If you wish, I'll do it.
You do it. You do it.
I move that the Historic District Commission of Gaithersburg, based on the exhibit submitted, the applicant's testimony, and the staff report findings and recommendation, make a determination that the buildings 50 years or older, located at 539 South Frederick Avenue and 1 Central Avenue, do not meet the criteria for historic architectural significance, either individually or as part of a historic district, as specified in sections 24 to 26 of the city code.
Can I add something to that? Can we break this up into two different houses?
If you wish.
We
I do.
certainly could,
I
and we
do.
could also recommend, don't forget the things we talked about in the way of salvage, but go ahead, Dean.
Right, that's a good point. We'll add that in right now.
And I would like to recommend the signage remembering the family and any possibility of salvage, and the relocation and salvage of the red barn behind 539 Frederick Avenue. Does that
Okay, very
sound
good.
appropriate?
As amended, and so let's take them one at a time. For 539 South Frederick Avenue, that's the brick one. Do you agree that it should be demolished? I says you agree.
Aye.
Mary Jo, okay. John?
Aye.
Okay, and Dean says, Dean Matola says aye, that it should be demolished. Next then is for 1 Central Avenue, which is the colonial revival. John, do you agree that it should be demolished?
Aye,
Mary Jo, do you agree it should be demolished?
Aye.
with a tear,
Yes.
I'm sorry?
with a tear.
Agreed.
Yes. And I abstained, that's why I wanted to separate them. I can't bring myself to ruin good architecture, I'm sorry. Now, it passes 2-0 to 1, is that acceptable to legal counsel, I guess? Okay, so there you go. Okay, so I abstain. So for those two buildings, we've got 3-0 for the Frederick, 539 South Frederick, that it should be, we should approve for its demolition. And for 1 Central Avenue, we, as a commission, approve its demolition as 2-0 to 1 abstention. Okay, very good. Congratulations, good luck to you, and we hope you add or replace it with extremely beautiful architecture.
That's my goal.
Very good, thank you so much. All right, next on our agenda is discussion topics, which is the historic designation petition priorities. May we have a presentation from staff, please?
Yeah, so as you remember, last month we brought this to you, and we had a number of different ideas that the commissioners had. Some Mark Commissioner Feinstein mentioned the National Geographic Building. Chair Ventola mentioned Old Town. Commissioner LaFrance mentioned City Hall.
Yes.
We're trying to pare it down to get direction on one specific or group of properties. And to reiterate staff's preference, we'd like them to be not necessarily government-owned properties, which kind of rule out City Hall and the Montgomery County Public Safety Headquarters, the National Geographic Building. Also, Old Town, that would take a bigger discussion among other departments because it's such a large-scale project that we'd probably have to get budgeting and outside group and things like that. So that might be, take a couple years to get the funding for that. So we'd like something that's been more immediate and perhaps more pressing. As I mentioned last month, staff's preference would be to do the mills of Old Town, and I have photos as a refresher. Thomas Cannery already designated, but that would be included in a potential thematic historic district. Granary Row, going down the railroad tracks. This is the former mill, now a storage building. I mean, these buildings have changed considerably, but as industrial buildings, you would expect them to change a lot over the years. And then this building as well over towards Washington Grove. So open up discussion back to the commission. Greg, I don't know if you have anything you'd like to add.
May I have a question?
Sure.
I just want to reassure myself because I can't remember. I've testified about this before, but is the Humpback Bridge historically designated?
Is that,
That
I don't think
goes
that's in
into
city
Washington
limits. I know it's very
The
close
reason why I
to
ask
city
is
limits.
because I know Mayor Katz and myself testified to prevent it from becoming a 4-lane road
Right.
some years back. Maybe a decade ago now, I don't remember, but that's something I would also like to look at protecting, even though technically I know because of the upkeep and the repairs, there's little historic material left. I
Yeah.
think at the same time, I would like a protection for that.
I think the big question is whether
We
it's
need to
in
find
city
out.
limits. I don't
Okay,
think it's in
we need
city
to
limits.
find
I think
out.
it's just out.
Just Montgomery County.
And yeah, because I recall this coming up when we did the master plan. There's another bridge on the opposite side of the city along Forest Preserve Road that goes under the railroad track, the stone bridge that goes under the railroad track, and there's question if that's in the city. And I feel like the
The
Humpback
one across the
Bridge
street
is
from where
out, correct?
Seneca
Yeah,
Park
it's,
is?
I believe it's out of the city. I think the city's jurisdiction ends
Well,
at the
that's-
right of way for the CSX.
All right, well, let's find out just to be sure. but
Yeah,
that-
we could double check that,
No,
but
'cause
yeah, I
think
believe
I'd
it's
like
out.
protection for that. And what about, and you're saying that the stone bridge that's across, what is it, Waring Station Road? or-
Yeah, it's a
Whatever.
forest,
Yeah.
Game Preserve Road.
Yeah, Game Preserve Road, that's right.
That
Yeah, I've
one
been under that a
is,
bunch of
there's
times.
question if that's, I think it's just out. I think it's on the state
All
park
right, well, we
property as
should
well.
try to find
Yeah.
out.
So I am looking at the
That would
city's
be
GIS mapping system,
Yeah.
And the bridge is outside the city's jurisdiction.
Okay. All right, very good.
So that
then.
takes care of those.
Yes, it does. But another set of silos, like the ones we're looking at right here, that's very close to there. That's what, right? So that's why I just wanted to make sure. I guess it's just outside, right?
Yeah, I believe this is right on the property line or the
Mhm.
jurisdiction line.
Well, I know Mark said that he would like to have several going at one time because we're a decade behind doing anything. So how about we start with the 3 suggested properties that the city's asking us to do, and then we move from
Sure,
that.
sure, that's fine.
Does that work?
Yeah, except that Old Town, I think if we can just start to, you're saying it's too large to do all at once, it'll take some time, but what about just small parts of it?
The goal really is, we have this master plan with the potential resources of note that have been, put in with the recommendations by the HDC, if you remember when we went through the process.
Right,
Those were put in there for us to ultimately take stabs at them, to look at them, do additional research, to bring them to the forefront to see do they meet the requirements for designation or not.
right.
We really want to start knocking those ones off that have already been highlighted. And so that's where Chris and I are trying to, I think, go to tonight, is get some consensus from the commission on which ones within that list would you like us to start with.
Whatever you guys want.
Well, I agree with what you're saying about Old Town, Dean, as well. Are any of these properties, Folk Store,
Granary
That's
Row,
East
Bryant Mill,
Diamond,
folks.
East Diamond, Granary Row, East Diamond, of course.
Granary Row, Bryant Mill, and Folk Store, those are all the buildings that I showed photos
Yeah.
for. So this is obviously Thomas Cannery, Granary Row. And this is the Folk Store.
Okay. Now, how long should we expect to be able to move on to the next three?
Good question. Estimate maybe a half year.
The reason why I'm asking, Dean, is because I'm in full support of what you're talking about. And I just want to see,
Mhm.
what are we looking at? Wanting to possibly do either a designation of Old Town or a historic district in Old Town, correct?
Right, right. And I'm thinking that if we can just start to save some of them, that'll be good. Because one of the
Yeah.
things I'm worried about is that once somebody says we're demolishing, then that changes the nature
Exactly.
of our ability. It changes the nature of what we can and can't save, because so far we're batting zero. And do I expect that to change? Well, I don't know what to say on that, but I do worry that that some of those buildings can be lost just by somebody coming in and saying, I'm going to develop, and then our hands are tied. So I'd like to, those buildings to me, some of them along that corner are some of the most beautiful piece of architecture in the city, in my opinion. And I would hate to see it go by, the wrecking ball, like a lot of the stuff that we've tried to save. So I would hate to say, let's wait, 6 months to a year before we even start to discuss those. So.
Considering we've had so many demolitions before us.
Right, well,
Recently.
that's the key. That's the big part, is that we're, like
Yeah.
I said, we're batting zero on having these things being saved. And I think mostly because the development is already pushed, gone far, even before we see it. So it would be nice to at least get some
That's really the
support.
point here, is to shift that.
I'm sorry?
That's really the point here, is to shift that whole,
Yes, exactly.
Dynamic.
That's what this is all about. Exactly,
Right.
good point.
to
Yeah,
get it
so
out of the,
I would hate to just kick that one down the road when I firmly believe that that area has some of the most beautiful buildings in the city. That it is really, the architecture is so pedestrian, so human scale there. When I first saw them, I was just in awe. It's just beautiful, beautiful detailing, but it was so, it's just, sometimes buildings that tower over you, you get lost in them, but this is the actual opposite. It's actually smaller than most buildings are, and it's just so intimate scale. I would hate to see them go. So if we can consider looking into some of those along that corner, at least put it on the agenda here to see, maybe the fourth one. It doesn't have to be the whole district. It doesn't have to be the whole block. Just some of those buildings there, I think, are worth preserving. That's my only thing.
Well, if you want to start there, Dean, I'm with you, whatever
Okay.
you'd like to
All right.
do.
Sounds good.
Good,
Yeah.
good.
Well, it sounds like we have consensus then.
That's great. I love that. And it's only been 10 years since I've been trying to put that one on the table. I was told originally by some people that you can't even touch those, but over the years I'm hearing that wasn't the case. So I would like I said, I would be sad to see them go. So if we have a possible opportunity to save them, I think maybe let's get started.
So who's them? Do we have some numbers of these buildings that we would
No, I
like?
never, because I was thinking that it would
Yeah,
be
yeah.
presented to us, not expecting you guys to do anything like that, but if you can, maybe just get some photos of some of those areas.
I took a bunch of
mostly on the-
photos the
mostly on
last
that
time we
corner.
had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not even showing too far away from that, but that little row, I guess South Summit, when you cross over, it's just stunning stuff. It really is great. And I'm not even talking about too many buildings. I'm not even talking about a big giant district or anything. Just saving those, I think, would be worth the 10-year wait.
Well, we also need to see what is historically designated in the actual central part of downtown, Old Town. And what about the firehouse?
The firehouse? Oh,
Yeah.
the city-owned building?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that's not designated. That's on the list here.
Yeah. See, so this is what I'm saying, Dean, that we have some things
Mm-hmm.
that are downtown.
Yeah,
And the firehouse, and I think the last one on that side, isn't that correct? The last building? on
Yeah,
that
before you
side.
run out of
Yeah,
road, yeah.
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 Can I also ask you to do a favor for me? And it is a favor, you don't have to do it if you don't have the time, but if you could put a little picture to the left of each one of those, that would help tremendously.
Yeah.
Visually, yeah,
Because,
visual
I have to
too.
tell you, when we did the four houses, I guess, over the summer, I actually had the pictures right on my paper, and it makes it, you clearly know what we're referring to, and you clearly see it, but versus some of the stuff to me is, I know just about every one of them, but the images of the particulars are not there for me, because I just don't see them. I mean, the granary, we know what it looks like, but until you see the picture with all the stuff, it really, really helps. So.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay.
So if I could make a recommendation
Yes,
to the
please.
HDC, obviously Chris is one staff member
Yeah.
tasked with all this work. It's going to take him a significant amount of time to obviously do all the research. As commissioners and your collective knowledge, I would recommend if you could also assist, providing some of your historical information, background and time, maybe to help Chris with some of the research. There's going to be some outreach potentially that would need to happen as well with some of the property owners. Obviously, I think everyone knows if you get property owners on board, chances of designation probably go up significantly.
All right. Well,
What
then-
about the optics of that, though? We got 3 members of this commission going out and knocking on doors.
It's perfectly fine. I mean, again, as historic district commission members, right, you're charged with preservation within the city of Gaithersburg. So I don't foresee any issues with the commission you as members, trying to draw up support for designation in the city.
I'm just wondering if it sort of implies that we are fully committed to designating that property that we're approaching.
I'm not so sure that's a bad thing, because I would think that we would need to be committed if we do want to save something.
Well, in terms of timing, yes,
Mhm.
but at the, of an issue, I'm not sure we want to do it.
Yeah, I would wait to maybe let staff finish and any research you guys may have as well as a commission. Let's get our research done first and see if it's collectively, and maybe it's the commission, feels it rises that level worth of designation.
That's true, because there's only 3 of us now, and there's a total of, is it 5?
Mhm.
Yeah, so having them do input, maybe some of them aren't for those particular projects. Here's
You
another-
also may just be speaking for yourself too, not necessarily on behalf of the full commission, particularly if there hasn't been a vote to decide, yes, we're going to designate or want to designate. It might be something that's just under consideration. So you wouldn't necessarily be saying, we've decided one way or another.
Yeah.
Yes, there can be implications
Clear out.
in approaching them. Right, there can be implications in approaching it, but it also depends on where you are in the process and, again, as an individual.
John does have a good point, though. We have to be impartial until we take the vote.
Mhm.
And so does that harm the concept of us being open and impartial? Because we have to have, that's part of our job, is when we have something before us, we have to hear all sides before we go and vote. And we have to be impartial the entire time. So does that harm the concept of being impartial if we are actually involved in
Recruiting.
Yeah, I mean, so John's point is well taken. I think that's what you were thinking, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think identify what you mean by recruiting. You are looking at a list of interests even tonight.
Mm-hmm.
So that's indicating some interest in moving forward, and what that means is looking into it. Because the other element that Greg was saying is, well, it's going to take one person time
Mm-hmm.
to do that research. Now, if the research comes back and isn't supportive, if your decision is based on the record and based on what's presented, again, it would be important to be clear what you're asking for. It's a matter of consideration, not necessarily designation, unless it is later in the process. The commission has looked at it and has decided, perhaps preliminarily or even otherwise, to move forward with the designation. Right now, it's moving forward with investigation.
Okay, all right. Now, Greg did mention something that is going to be a lot of work for Chris. So that, if you guys were coming into tonight thinking 3 you could handle, 4, which is my suggestion, or putting another one in, might be tipping the scale. What if we say tonight, let's pick the top 3 of those 4? That way, there's no extra work, technically. If we only go, if they came in thinking they could do 3, and they leave tonight doing 3, then they should be, you guys should probably be okay with that. So you guys open to the idea of just selecting 3 out of these 4? Well, I think one that I'm not terribly concerned about is the big white, what was that? The big white brick building. I don't remember what it was called.
Bryant Mill building.
Yeah, can we see that picture?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that I would lose heartburn, lose sleep or have heartburn if that was pushed to the next
Tier.
thank you, personally, versus the other 3, because I think the other 3 are stronger. What are your thoughts? Do you guys really love this one?
Well,
Is this
what
something
I
you
would
wanna
say
fight for?
about that is, remember, don't judge a book by its cover. We've learned in our training that sometimes buildings do evolve over time and change. I wouldn't take it off the list, but I don't think we have to do it tonight.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
Well, what I'm saying is that.
Because I'd like to know more about the history and the research and all of that.
Right, but maybe I wasn't being clear. I'm saying that staff thinks coming into tonight that they
Yeah.
could handle the research on 3 projects.
Right.
I suggested one that they weren't thinking of, that would be a 4th, and I'm saying, well, why don't we go back to the idea of 3, but let's pick
I agree.
the top 3. Well, I'm not saying to take any of them off the list. I'm saying the first tier, the first go-around should be
Great.
3, and I'm thinking this, to me, is the least strong compared to the others, if that's okay by you guys.
Sure.
Does that sound okay?
Yeah.
Okay. And you're okay with that? Is that
Yeah.
better for you? 3's better than 4 to research,
go.
right?
There you go.
Is somebody up on the commission, on the dais, any of you guys think that this one is one of the 3 strongest? You, Chris, or Greg, or?
I don't think we necessarily think this is the strongest, but we did think this could be part of a district, non-contiguous district of the granaries, and I think that's the reason why we picked this one,
That's a
to
good
be
point.
included.
Yeah.
That is a good point.
Yeah.
All right, so let's take a vote on it then. Let's make it a simple vote. Do we want Old Town, or do you call it the granary, is that what it is?
We can
It
call them
would
the
be
granary
a-
buildings.
The
Industrial-
granary.
industrial
it would be
buildings.
What is
The
this one?
granary district,
What is, other
The
than
mill
Publix?
buildings.
What is
the
it?
mill buildings.
Yeah, but what is this public
This is the
storage?
Bryant Mill.
Bryant Mill, okay. So here's the thing. Do we want, let's take a vote. Bryant Mill as the 3rd of the 3, or the part of Old Town that is, I guess, the end of Summit when it crosses over as being part of the 3. So based on that, what would you vote for? Bryant or Old Town?
Excuse me, Dean.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm just gonna reflective listen for a second so I get some clarification.
Mhm.
I think what they're saying is, between the cannery, the Bryant Mill, and the silos, right, that are at the very end by the split, that those 3 would be collectively historically designated.
Yes.
That's different. There isn't another like granary, like mill. Does that make sense?
Not sure I'm following you, but I'm saying is
So
that
if the 3rd one is completely different, it's not going to be included in the mill work.
right, so that's what we're gonna vote on right now.
Yeah.
So he still has to do research on 3 separate projects, even if it is collective.
Yeah.
So the question is, do you prefer to have all 3 of these, the cannery, the Bryant Mill, and the silos, done for the first tier that we're dealing with? Or.
Sorry, that's why I asked. I
Yeah,
wasn't getting it.
or do we think that two of these three are worth it, but Old Town, is the question, is worth more than the Bryant Mill as far as the research in this next 6 months?
Just to clarify, what do you mean by Old Town?
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that the buildings right, I mentioned, right on South Summit, right across, I guess Diamond, there's buildings right there that look fantastic.
So that's multiple buildings, so it would take
Small
multiple
bank.
reviews. I mean, it's not, I don't think it can be something we
Yeah.
can find in one review.
Right, yeah, that would be dozens of buildings. So I think the determination should be the mills, which is the staff preference, the 4 buildings, if you include the Thomas Cannery, or began a phased survey and review of Old Town.
Can we bring up a picture of the area? Right across the street, as you're heading down, it's over on the right.
Okay, so this is Summit and East Diamond Avenue. We're looking
Keep going.
west down
Yeah,
East
keep
Diamond
going.
and then
All right.
going north
All right,
on Summit.
yeah, so, let's see, it's
You're going due north now.
that,
So we're facing
You
north
wanna
here.
keep going on down east.
I'm going to keep going to the right, don't you? There. Right? Now, what about the bank on the corner? It used to be a bank. I mean, is that historically designated?
No.
No.
Okay. Now, although I know the building style has changed, it used to be 2 stories. Still, that's one of them. All right, go ahead.
yeah, it's maybe start with the bank.
The Belt
Because I know
Building
the
is
Belt Building is.
designated.
It is
Yeah.
already designated, yeah. So I would say, let's maybe just the fourth, the third would be just this bank then, I guess. Is that worth it more than Bryant Mill? To you guys, I mean, you guys get to vote. What would you prefer to be on our first tier?
I would say, I would prefer not to put all our eggs in one basket, and I would split this one out and include this in
So
the
you're
first
saying,
three.
so well, let's say bank, because that's what we're saying, instead of, I've been saying Old Town, but you say bank.
Right,
So if you were voting, you would vote the bank
bank,
instead of the Bryant Mill.
that's correct.
Okay, I got it, so that's one vote, and how about you?
Sure, yes.
Are you sure? Because I don't wanna.
I still would like to look at the mills and the cannery and all of that collectively at some point. But
Well,
if you're trying to save priority, I think that the bank building here is probably in far more danger of being redeveloped than
Bryant Mill.
right now.
Okay, so are you then saying that you vote for the bank in this 3? So then it would be cannery, silo, and bank then, right? Are you good with that? Not the Bryant Mill?
But does that subvert the process of having the 3 collective as a district?
Not necessarily, but this is just timing, this is our very first step.
Okay. Yes, that,
You're good with that?
yeah.
Well, that makes it 3-0. You guys comfortable with that? All right, how about you guys? Are you comfortable with that?
I guess so. I can tell you that this bank building, based on a photo that we have of it
Mhm.
originally, it's very unlikely to be designated based on how drastic it's been changed. It used to have a pyramidal column right
Oh,
here,
yeah.
and elaborate. It just.
But I know
just-
some historical papers were found in the attic of that building.
Yeah, just based on how drastically it's been changed, the likelihood of it being worthy of designation is slim to none. The likelihood of it contributing to a potential district there is very low. And this photo is fresh in my mind because I recently gave a presentation and people are aghast at what's happened to this building.
Yeah, it's such a shame.
So I don't know if necessarily, we
Do you
could-
want to move down the street and pick something more architecturally interesting, I guess?
Chris, I've got a question. As I understand it, you're talking about a potential district that would include Granary Row, Bryant Mill, and I believe we've referred to that as the silos or the, I
Yeah.
think we know
Folk
the.
store, yeah.
I'm sorry?
Folk store is the traditional
Okay,
name.
got it. If it's a district,
Hmm.
and I understand non-contiguous district, I actually advised that that was possible, wouldn't, to some extent, the designation of each depend at some level on the other? Or would it
Absolutely,
be-
yeah. You wouldn't want to decouple any of them from the others.
Okay, so ultimately then, it sounds like if we're doing, if the focus is Granary Row or say Granary Row and Folk Store, Bryant Mill's probably gonna be part of that just in order to come along. So it sounds like the idea is simply, there are 4 that are a priority to do, whether we can do 4 or not. That's
Right.
the message I'm getting.
Yeah.
The point there is not to say, I mean, if, I sometimes also will occasionally have the problem of saying, well, I can do 2 or 3 things and I'm told you have to do 5 or 6 and you just have to get it done. That's the way it's gonna be. We do our best. But the point I wanted to make there is, if all 3 are connected, not to necessarily be offended, certainly I'm sure Chris and the planning staff will take what your wishes tonight, but not to be offended if Bryant Mill ends up being included, because that's my understanding of the way a district works, that all 3 would work together
And I'm
and
fine
end
with
up
that.
supporting all of them, just so that you
Exactly.
understand the,
Exactly.
kind of the way these districts are approved.
Yeah.
It can be,
But it's non-contiguous.
It doesn't matter.
it
It's a
doesn't have to be
concept.
contiguous.
No,
I know,
Aren't
Yeah.
we just researching at this point?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like we're designating, we're just
No,
researching.
no, that's exactly right. So, what do you guys think? I mean, I'm fine with anything. I don't wanna push, but I don't wanna lose this stuff either.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I agree with what Chris Berger said, that it's not very likely. But if we still, in spite of that, would like to protect what was the bank, we certainly can. Because again, that is also about change over time. So it's within our purview to consider that change over time.
Okay, well, then I'm gonna open the vote again. And so here's the question. We all believe cannery is worth pursuing. We all believe the silos are worth pursuing. And so now the question is, the bank versus Bryant Mill. So I'm opening the vote, just opening the vote again, just to make sure that we're all okay one way or the other. So based on that, how would you vote, John?
Bank.
Okay, based on that, how would you vote, Mary Jo?
I'll vote bank, but I want to say that Bryant Mill will be considered anyway when they, for
Okay.
research.
And then
We're
that,
suckering him into work,
Yeah.
whether he wants to or not.
right. So I also agree, obviously, that the bank is worth pursuing. So we're back to the same decision, which is good. And so it's up to you if you want to add a 4th by having the Bryant Mill added in. So there you go.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll do the research, return back in a couple months to further this dialogue with the commission or with the board. And then staff will probably provide some recommendations as well as we do the research to the commission.
That'd be great.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay. Anything further from anybody on this before going? Okay, next then is from staff. Chris, you're up first.
The 2023 calendar will be sent to you shortly.
Very good.
And hopefully we can avoid a situation like tonight where we have a bare quorum and we'll move it's always difficult for the 4th Wednesday of November because it's the night before Thanksgiving usually. And in the past, we've done Thursday of the week before. Last year we did Tuesday like we're doing tonight. So next year we have 5 Wednesdays in the month, so we can move it to the 5th Wednesday.
Oh, very
So
good.
hopefully we don't have a bare quorum like tonight, but we appreciate the 3 of you for coming tonight.
You're welcome.
You gave us no choice. Okay, very good. Anything further?
No?
Okay, Greg?
Nothing for me, just a happy and Thanksgiving to each one of you.
Thank you.
You too. All
All
of you.
all your families.
And right back at you.
Thank you very much. All right, Frank, anything from you?
No, nothing new. You may have heard rumors of my demise have been somewhat overstated, I would say.
oh my.
That
What
I was,
happened?
that I was
Tell me
leaving.
about them, I don't know anything about them.
Oh, okay. There was some, I actually was looking at making a move to the county, but ended up encountering my boss and the city manager and some others, and we ended up working out kind of a plan where they said after Abraham Lincoln was reelected in 1864 that Long Abe will be around a little longer. So hopefully not with the same reaction that happened in his situation.
Right.
Well, Frank, we're glad to have you.
But I'll be
That's right.
I'll be around for a little longer as well.
Very well.
Actually,
Good.
a lot longer based on my commitments to the city manager.
Well, we are
That's
glad to have
wonderful.
you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
We are glad to have you.
Glad to be here and glad to be part of it. It was just a unique opportunity that had opened up at the county. I have been there before. I know it's a very congenial working environment at the county attorney's office. I respect the folks that are there, so tough decision either way.
Mm,
But I also have a lot invested here over the years, so
Sure.
glad to
Yeah.
say.
How many years have you been here?
I always take it a compliment when people say, "Wow, it seems like it's been so much longer." Than
Yeah.
But we are. It was early 2000, actually President's Day 2014.
Oh,
So we're
okay.
coming up on 9 years.
Okay, okay. Because we started in 2010?
I think so.
I think so.
Mhm.
Us. And
That sounds right.
It just seems like forever.
And so, yeah, I remember you almost from the beginning. So I guess you came in like 3 or 4 years after we were started.
Mhm.
And I say we, it's really me. These guys actually were even further.
No, you were an alternate
Yeah, but
at
I'm
the same
saying,
time I started.
but she was HPAC, right?
Yeah.
Were you HPAC
Yeah.
at all?
No, no.
I
Okay.
think I've been serving since 2007.
Wow,
I think.
wow. Wonderful. All
You
right.
came with the building, right?
Apparently.
All right. Anything from the commission? John?
No.
All right. Mary Jo?
No.
I say the same as well. So we are hereby adjourned. Thanks, everybody.